repetitive, this feels on repeat, feeling starts to arise, that is exactly when you know that you are doing it right. This is, you guys, this journey, I know for a lot of you coming from anything like myself, just the toxic diet background of trying every single approach before meeting Team Becoming Her of keto, Whole30, Weight Watchers, 1,200 calories, $99 detoxes. I mean, insert whatever approach, there's a bazillion of them out there. And those approaches have you operating in a space that feels very familiar, right? Because you're constantly chasing that dopamine hit when you're utilizing approaches like that. And the only thing that's really keeping you motivated with approaches like that is watching the scale go down relatively quickly. It's like if you continue to drop pound over pound over pound over pound, that's the only thing. And that is quite literally your only metric of success because let's be honest, none of those approaches are fueling your body correctly. You're not doing the things that lead to energy and vitality and your hair growing and just feeling like a normal human. You are quite literally starving yourself and you're operating from a space of complete and total restriction. And that is, for a lot of you guys, up until this point, all that you have known. And so when we come in, and I talk about this often, but fat loss in of itself, you guys, it's relatively simple. It's basic elementary school math, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's really freaking boring. It's a lot of the boring basic things on repeat. It's that wash, rinse, repeat mentality. So it's continuing to show up. And I hear a lot of you guys hitting my step goal, hitting my protein goal, continuing to nail my nutrition. And a lot of those things can feel very, very just repetitive. They can feel very mundane when, again, coming from different approaches where you like are in a place of, well, if I slash all carbs and I do all these things and you're like operating from a space of just complete chaos all of the time. And we come in and we normalize this for you. We come in and we're like, look, we're going to be eating these foods that feel in the very beginning maybe repetitive and boring. We're going to be eating, we're going to be switching over to whole foods because that's how our body thrives. And we're going to be doing these things on a wash, rinse, repeat mentality. And I know for a lot of you guys coming in, transitioning into some guides and ultimately going from, not that it won't ever get to a place of if it fits your macros approach, because that is the goal for every single one of you guys. And we talk and we preach that. But we only get the if it fits your macros approach once we understand how to fuel our body first, right? So we only get that approach when once we master the 90%, we get the 10%. And that's when we start to get to add in, the fun foods, the soul foods. Nobody ever wants to. The goal isn't to have you guys never eating a donut again. You guys hear me talk about this all of the time, but we don't get that until we've mastered the boring basics. And so I really want to lean into this because I know going into the holidays, and I know for a lot of you, again, regardless if you're 2 weeks in, being able to anticipate what is down the pipeline for you, or if you're 2 years in, because I get stuck in this approach at times. I have to remind myself of this at times. Jules has to remind me of this at times as well, that ultimately it is those boring basics and we're just wired to internally, and if you listen to David's call on Monday, which was really powerful, internally we want the chaos because that is all that we've ever known, and that stems from childhood wounding and trauma. And I'd really encourage you to go listen to that call if you have not. But ultimately, that's when we feel at peace, is with the chaoticness and with the just complete and total. And we're constantly throwing things at a wall and praying that it sticks. And when we come in and we normalize the very mundane and the repetitive, that can, for a lot of you, throw up walls, and it can trigger a lot of you. And I know we've had a lot of just conversations, and Jules, I'm gonna have you lean into this a little bit because I know this has been a heavy theme for you the last couple of weeks, conversations in and around, but you expect me to eat the same thing every day. I expect you to variation of the same foods over, yes, 90% of the time. And that's ultimately, if you want a body that you love and you thrive in, will be your reality for the rest of your days. But I promise you, as we start to teach you how to fuel your body correctly, your palates are going to change. What you used to crave is no longer going to be the same. And not to say that you're not going to ever crave a donut. I have days where I crave donuts. Jules talks about our donut story in Vegas, right? Go in, we have a few bites of the donut, we enjoy the donut, and then, but ultimately the donut doesn't consume us. And because the donut's sitting there, it's not like that we have to hoard it. It has no more power over myself or over Jules anymore. I mean, we used to live in that place where the donut controlled us, right? And if the donut was there, I automatically had to eat the donut because it was staring at me and the donut controlled me. But food freedom, you guys, isn't just I get to eat whatever I want whenever I want. Food freedom is the fact that food no longer controls you. That's the definition of food freedom. When you can look at that donut and it's not just like staring at you, like and just eyeing you, and you don't have this like sense of FOMO in and around it. It's like, yeah, it's good. And I have a couple bites and it satisfies me. And I guess ultimately, if you want to eat a donut, you eat it, you fit it within your macros and you move on. But it's not the day to day for you anymore. It's not that you need the donut and you're constantly obsessing over the donut. And so, again, this has turned more into a story about a donut, and I didn't mean for it to do that, but it's more of I want to normalize the mundane. I want to normalize the repetitiveness because anybody, anybody, you guys, and I don't care what social media tries to preach to you. I don't care what they're throwing in your face. I've been doing this a long time. I know multiple coaches. I've seen this up, down, left, sideways. Anybody that has a body that you respect or you are swooning over has a large level of repetition within their nutrition. It's just the reality of what it is. And that doesn't mean that it's restrictive. Again, we'll have to rewire how we think about restriction. That just means that it's repetitive in and around the foods that fuel their body correctly. And it doesn't mean that we never again eat the donut. We just understand how to fit the donut in on occasion when it makes sense. But the donut no longer controls us. So, Jules, I know that you have a couple things you've been shaking your head. I'd love for you to lean in because I know that this has been a theme for you the last couple weeks, and maybe just anything there that I haven't quite touched on just yet.
No, I think you really nailed it all. And guys, like I love what she just ended it with. Anybody's body that you swoon after, or that you see on social media, no matter what they say, they eat in a day. I'm here to tell you they eat the same thing on repeat, whether it's intuitively or they follow a little bit of structure. And the 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 difference I'll say is Nicole and I do very much the same thing. Nicole's approach is she's a little more intuitive, but her idea of intuitive is if I watch her eat all day, which I have, she eats the same thing over and over. She just intuitively knows. Where I'm the kind of girl like, I have my meal guide or I have a menu or I have some type of plan that I created plastered to her refrigerator, even if I'm at her house, because that's the way that I operate. I can intuitively eat and I do, but we essentially eat the same thing over and over again with different varieties. And I think something that's really important to remember and just a reframe of what Nicole said is food isn't here to entertain us, guys. It's not. And but we unfortunately have come from a place, and again, that's where you go listen to David's call. Like we have been programmed from very long ago. We have things that are telling us that food is entertainment. And it's about us trying to help you through these guides and instilling these habits to create a new value around food where it becomes 90% of the time we're using it to fuel our body, and 10% of the time it's an enjoyment. It's not that you're never going to enjoy the food, you should, but it's rewriting that story and really starting to think about this. Like, what's the bigger payoff? Being entertained by the donut or the food or whatever it is? Or that feeling that some of you guys have talked about, Charisse, like what did you just express? This new feeling that you have.
Yeah.
And these are the things that you guys have to lean into. So I think it's the same thing, but just kind of, and I know some of you guys have been on, we've had back and forth conversations. And when I've kind of rewrote the story for you this way, it's kind of landed the plane and you're like, oh, yeah, I get it. And that ultimately, guys, is food freedom, but it comes from, like Nicole said, we're not looking to restrict you. We're not looking to do this forever. What we're trying to do is assist you in rewriting those habits that become new values to you. And when they're new values, the holidays are a fucking breeze. Birthdays are a breeze. Vacations are a breeze because food no longer controls you. You control it.
And I promise you, I'm gonna piggyback off of that because I know a lot of you guys come in here wanting, like when you start, it's this idea that I need to grind harder. It needs to be this like big dramatic. There's just one thing I'm not quite missing. I'm not working hard enough. And I promise you, you don't need harder, you need consistent. That's what you need. And it doesn't have fat loss is so ungodly, stupid, easy, you guys. It really is. It really is. It's whole foods 90+% of the time. It's consuming enough protein. It's moving your body mindfully, as Jules says, move your ass more than you sit on it. It's lifting heavy shits. It's rest, recovery. It's a wash, rinse, repeat. And that feels very, very boring. And I'd love for Christina to speak up because I know Christina just mentioned, and I love Christina's story because she just said, I never thought 180 was possible. I'm in the 150s, and Christina's now living in a place where you have guides, Christina, I know that you mix and match from, but you now more take a if it fits your macros approach of swapping different things out. You, of course, hit your macros, but it's no longer as, I guess, let's call the reset phase for what it is. It's slightly more restrictive as we are, really truly trying to find a clean or finding a clean slate to operate from. But Christina, I'd love for you to dive into that a little bit because you are the epitome of where everybody wants to get to. And some may not be there quite just yet, but I'd love for you to talk about the freedom that you have now with just being able to mix and match. And yes, you have different guides you choose from, but you understand how to swap out. And that is what we want for every single one of you.
Yep, I've definitely learned that. And it was hard when I got the guides because I already was doing macros. And then I was like, oh no. But you do realize, I think your desires change. That's for me, like my desire changed. You realize that I don't even know how to put it into words, but like the freedom that you have being able to mix and match with your macros, and you realize like maybe those other foods that you thought you wanted aren't so much worth it anymore because you realize how much better you feel when you start to take better care of yourself and you're eating, whole foods. My body not only has changed just physical appearance, but I have osteoarthritis in my knee and I was getting shots in my knee. It's been almost a year since I've had a shot now. I know, look at Jules, right? Yeah, you guys don't even know. I think the way that I was eating before, the inflammation that was in my body from all the garbage I was probably eating, and understanding the difference between like pre-packaged protein, like protein bars and Quest chips and protein yogurt and all of that. I was like, oh, I'm hitting my protein goals before, but the difference in feeding my body with, single ingredient whole foods has made such a huge difference with the inflammation, the pain in my body that I used to have. And then it's also allowed me to change my physical appearance too. Not there yet, but I'm getting there and I feel so much better than I ever did. And I think if you stick to your guides in the beginning and you learn what works for you, and you don't have to eat, like if you don't like asparagus, you don't have to eat asparagus, swap it out for broccoli, or whatever it is that you like. And then you really will find freedom. And those desires for like the donut or whatever it is for you guys, I think that 4-bite rule is very helpful. And yeah, I think that it's changed. So my mind, it's such a mental thing, right? My mind's
So
changed
much
so
more.
much. So,
I would love for you to touch base. Is there an aspect? Because this is why I want for every single one of you. It's like we think we're addicted to sugar. We think it's the donut that we truly crave, but do you even really want the donut as much anymore? Like that's the part. That's where I think I
mm-mm.
first start. It's almost impossible to feel like you'll ever get to a place where you're like, don't want the donut or insert swap the donut for whatever it is,
Yeah, whatever it is.
right? But I would love for you to touch on that a little bit because I mean, you could have it if you wanted it, but
I
do you really even want it as much anymore?
No, that's the thing. I don't because then I look at the macros on whatever it is that I want to eat and I'm like, is it really worth it for me to eat that? Because I could have so much more food, the volume of food that you can have when you're eating clean. And then the way that you feel too, like you actually feel full. You can have a couple of bites of whatever it is, but you're not going to feel, I mean, you might get like that dopamine hit, but again, you don't need the whole donut if you're going to go for the donut or whatever it is.
Hmm,
So, yeah, definitely change the way I look at things.
I love that.
Can I ask her
Yeah.
to touch on something? We've had
Yeah.
a conversation going on this morning, Christine. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and you have some friends that sorry, Nicole, but I think this
Oh,
is
please, please.
super important that she kind of like leans into this a little. We've had a conversation going on back and forth this morning, or actually the last 2 days, and you have some friends that are losing some significant amount of weight and maybe even a little bit faster than you or at your rate. And we had to zoom out a little bit today. Like, can you
Mm.
talk out, not necessarily 100% about your feelings, but about like where we landed the plane on how you're in this different, better place? And I mean, you can even, they're using GLP-1s, which there's nothing against
Like
it, but
so many women I know, right? So many women. I'm surrounded by so many people who are on a GLP-1. And I think it's helpful if you're a person that needs that help, right? And I'm not like, I don't have any judgment on it, but so many of the women that I know that are using it, like they don't have necessarily like that food noise that people talk about, or and I think they're just conveniently using it to lose the weight, and but they're not doing the work. And it was an option for me before I signed up for Team Becoming Her. And I think, I'm watching them, and like it blew me the other day because I saw one of my friends who's been using it. She's so skinny, right? She's not strong though, so skinny. And then I was with another friend when we bumped into her, and she was like, "Oh, I just started doing the shot too." And I was like, "What is going on? Like, why?" Like, but then I think about them. Like, I said to my friend, I was like, "You're going to be on this for the rest of your life. Like, what's your plan? Like, are you working out? Are you even eating right?" She's like, "I had an apple and a slice of cheese for lunch." And I was like, "Well, that's like, where's your protein, honey? And then I think, okay, so she's going to lose the weight, but then what happens when she goes off of this shot? Like, what is that going to look like? And how long is she going to be on this shot for? And just so many women are on it, and not all of them are really successful on it. Some of them are very, thin, but they're not strong. And I think that this program for me, like I'm walking away and if I ever walk away, but like when I get to wherever it is that I want to be, I know that like I can go out to eat or I can go on vacation, and I know I'm going to be strong, and I know when I'm 54 years old, when I'm 60, I'm not going to be that girl who's like, "Oh, I can't get up and move because my back and my knees are killing me." So, I think it's important to take the time to learn what this team has to offer for all of you newbies or wherever you are in your journey, and really absorb what it is that we are learning here. I don't know why we just don't know this.
Toxic
Why
diet culture. I know
it's
why.
awful. I know. Like I could cry over it because, like I said, I'm 54 years old, and this is the first time in my life that I think I've ever weighed in the 150s. I'm not low 150s, like I'm high 150s, but I'm so happy because for a huge part of my adult life, I was like 250, 280, and then I'd get like 220. I'd be like, oh, yay. But I never, and you name it, I did it. But until now, to learn how to fuel my body where it's like my body's happy, you know, it's
So powerful to say you're never going backwards. Like for a fact that you're never falling victim,
100%,
and
100%.
that's truly ultimately that's the real flex, and that's what every
Mm-hmm.
and just to put out there, you guys, there's no shame in a GLP-1 game. There's a difference with the
No,
no.
dose
exactly.
correctly. It has a plan and it has a strategy. So for anybody watching the replay, because we have women that are utilizing GLP-1s, and we make it very,
Yep.
very clear, there's no shame in that game. They can be very
Right.
effective. The shame or the unfortunate reality, and that's typically when they end up on our doorstep, is when there is no plan and there is no strategy, and they're just doing it to be the smallest number on the scale, and then they're losing
Mm-hmm.
and they're downregulating hormones and metabolic capacity, and they're
Mm.
coming out in chunks, and their nails are brittle. I mean, when they're being abused, when they're being abused, that's why there's like a $2 million lawsuit out there, or maybe it's even like $2 billion right now against like GLP-1s. But it's the unfortunate reality that people just abuse what they are meant for, right? So it's not the peptide itself, it's the abuse of the peptide without a plan and without a strategy. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the part there, that if you have people that just start taking them, and anybody can get them these days. That's the other part, is like you don't even have to have a prescription. You can just go to these research peptide companies. They get shipped directly to your door, and women are desperate. And it's like, why don't we know this? It's because our entire lives, all we have been told as a female is to be the smallest possible version of yourself at all means, all costs necessary. And it doesn't matter if that sacrifices your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health. If the scale's going down, then you're winning. But there's not a world when the scale is going down and you're losing muscle that any part of that is winning. Like nothing about that is going to be effective long term. So just making sure that, for those watching the replay, that again, GLP-1s can be very, very powerful. But like what Christina's pointing out, is like they're just using them without any sort of plan or strategy. There's no protein
Mm-hmm.
involved, there's no training involved, there's none of that. And that's when it comes really troublesome, I guess. So
Mm.
And
sure.
I mean, I have a current client that I'm thinking of that's utilizing them, not on this call, but very successful. But the difference is the strategy behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And they can be
Hmm.
useful for so many things outside of just the food noise, right? We're talking inflammation reduction. We're talking if you're working through as far as like insulin resistance and autoimmune. So there are reasons behind these peptides that have nothing to do with just quote unquote weight loss or fat loss, which is the other part.
Hmm.
Doctors don't have the time to educate. Totally agree with that, Amy. And there's just a lot of them that again are just prescribing to prescribe because they have no other solution. They just don't know what they don't know either. And so it's the typical eat less, move more. Here's a peptide. This should fix your problem without any
Hmm.
awareness around it.
I
So
had this experience at work the other day because everybody at work seems to be on a GLP-1, but they're ordering fast food at nighttime and doing all these things. And I know they looked at me one day. This girl, it was a compliment to me. She's like, I'm looking at you in your scrubs, and you're just so like fit. And she's like, and you look so healthy and you eat all the time. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. Is this genetics? I'm like, no, I'm actually eating for the first time in my life. I'm actually eating the right foods in the right portions and, going to the gym and there's a plan, but so many people just don't have that plan and it breaks my heart. And I always say that to them. I'm like, well, what are you going to do after? Do you have a plan? Are you, putting new routines into play so that you can carry on with your success? But it's so funny because they're just like you're little but you look so healthy, your hair's not falling out, your cheeks aren't sunk in. And so yeah, I just thought that was an interesting observation.
And
for
you're in
sure.
the medical field.
Hmm. That is, I know that's the scary reality of it too, with just providers that you trust, right? And they just don't know what they don't know. And there's a massive difference, you guys, between skinny and fit.
Mhm.
Anybody can be skinny. Anybody can lose a bunch of weight really freaking quickly. Skinny, cool, cool. But fit demands attention. Fit demands respect. Fit like turns heads. There's a huge difference. We don't chase skinny, we chase fit. Fit is sustainable. Fit is lifelong. Fit is health. Fit is so much more than just I weigh X amount of pounds on the scale.
Yeah, we don't want to look like a bag of milk, ladies.
No, we don't. They can be sick, as I always say. All right, you guys. Anybody have anything to add? I think this was just a really powerful conversation, especially for those, again, and just a reminder for even Coach Jen, I was going back and forth with her. She's like, I even need, because I redid our success blueprint and I was going in and just talking about that and the emotions that come into each different phase of the journey. And Jen, she's like, even I needed this reminder. And so it is, you guys, again, just even coaches need this reminder. I need it at times as well that it is going to, there's a world where when it starts to like boring is what you're shooting for, especially when it comes to this. Repetitive is what you're shooting for. And when you get there and you get past the overwhelm and we sink into the repetitiveness and the boringness, that's when exactly know, like when you know where you're meant to be, you're doing it right. And that is just, start to embrace the boring will start to get exciting and your, repetitive gym routines you start to look forward to. And the boring food is stuff that you crave. Like I go on vacation in a couple weeks. We're doing a cruise up and down like the New England coastline up into Canada. And I love vacations, you guys. I love it. But I mean, every single time I'm about 3 days in, I'm like, okay, I'm so ready to get home and eat normal food again. And not to say that I don't eat very well on vacation. I absolutely do. But there's a world where you have like your routine and the stuff that you prepare at home that I'm like, okay, I'm so ready to get home for that again. And I promise you'll get to a space where you crave those foods and it'll be the inverse. It'll be the opposite of when you first start. Anything else to add? Anybody? Jules, Sandy?
Cindy.
Cindy's here. I know. I said, but she's walking.
Cindy's walking.
She is walking. I need to go wrap up. No? All right, ladies.
Good call.
I know. Thanks for being here, you guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for just, again, I love seeing new faces. So, everybody, Kathleen, I know this was your first call, but everybody who's new, continuing to join these calls and continuing to support each other and continuing to lean in because that is, again, one of the most powerful pieces of Team Becoming Her is the unmatched support and the tribe and what you guys have access and available to. So, I will make sure to get this out in the recording, but I will see you guys at no, the end of the month. Yep. Okay. Bye, guys. Peace.